Evening, everybody. I'm Nathma from the Academic Development Open Virtual Hub. Welcome to the HerTech Igniting Women's Digital Future series. We're really happy that you took the time and all the energy to join us this evening. We really promise to be as engaging as possible and to assist in promoting and also growing all our digital skills that we can take with us, not just into our studies, but also into our careers. Before I dive into the program, and it's quite a jam-packed program that we're going to be going through, I'd like to introduce Dr. Denzel Chetty. He is the founder of the Academic Development Open Virtual Hub, just to say some warm words of welcome. Thank you so much, Dr. Chetty.
Thank you so much, Natma. A very good evening to all our students that are joining us this evening. It's really an exciting opportunity for us. Let me start by first greeting my colleagues. With us, we have together Mr. David Alperstad, Mr. Richard Wright, Mr. Natmasami, who you've just seen, and then Mr. Ndiwe Mshlangu, colleagues who will be working through with you through the series on Tech Igniting Women's Digital Future series. So at this point, I think let me start by first welcoming you to this exciting and empowering journey. I've seen the impact of this particular workshop, this boot camp, last year, and it's really transformed a lot of our students that have engaged with it. So as you engage with this particular workshop, it's not just about learning digital skills, it's really about transformation, shifting our mindsets, empowering, and creating new opportunities for yourself. And you may ask, why did we decide on a specific focus on women? Now, two reasons. One is that we found in many of our series, training series, that women have been sidelined, their voices have been suppressed, and often you do not have that space to actually engage with critical issues that face you in the tech industry. And this is why we said, let's focus specifically on a space where we create this opportunity for our female students to engage with these critical issues on technology. Secondly, if we look around, even as you are starting your career at your trajectory at university in terms of your career path, the tech industry, CEOs, etc., are dominated by women who have marked their spot, are making headways into these different career spots. So it's really about preparing you in such a way that you have the mental capacity to think that this is your time to actually leverage whatever technology that you can have to make your own part in terms of the technology space and competencies. So as you think of this course, think of new opportunities, new spaces that you can really gain the confidence to mark your own way in terms of this technology space. So why digital literacy? Because when we think of digital literacy, it's about opening doors to greater independence, career advancement, entrepreneurship, social impact. And in terms of the university, it's really about having those core skills to position you at the forefront as critical ODEL learners. Now, in this bootcamp, we've looked at it specifically and looked at what are the competencies that we want to use. So we want to teach you how to use digital tools effectively. We want you to think critically in the digital space. So think, for example, from the perspective of understanding digital ethics, online safety, cybersecurity. Those are all key issues. But also think about the critical position that you dominate, that you occupy as female students in these spaces. What does it mean for you in terms of using these digital spaces for your own voices to resonate in this? We also want to engage you with emerging technologies, and you'll find that there are snippets in this particular bootcamp that exposes you to technologies. We want you to think of building a digital presence and making your own network online, establishing your own communities of practice that can empower you. The thing for us is really about breaking barriers. And what we want to see is that you overcome this barrier of gender stereotypes in digital industries. We want you to position yourself. As you know, UNISA is really at the forefront of digital learning and e-learning. But what we want is for you to really occupy the space as female students. So this bootcamp, we really want you to think about it as an empowerment, as engaging, use this as an opportunity to engage your facilitators. You have some excellent facilitators that have basically worked through these courses, but have also dominated some international spaces. We also want you to support one another. right? Because if you do not support one another in your own growth, you're not going to grow together. So we want you to grow together. You've already got about 200 people plus that are on this particular workshop. So we want you to grow together. We want you to develop your own community of practice. We want you to work the space such a way that you grow together as a team and emerge together through these causes. We want you to embrace new challenges as you grow, stepping outside of your comfort zones. We want to push you out of your comfort zones as online learners. But above all, we want you to enjoy these sessions, because it's not just about the skill, it's also about enjoying the ability to transform into a new digital space as online learners. So with that said, I wish you all the best as you continue this bootcamp. I know it's going to be a fulfilling 2 days of this bootcamp for you, and I really wish you all the best, and to say simply, make the best of this opportunity that you have. With that said, thank you so much. Welcome to this bootcamp, and let me hand over back to you, Natma.
Thank you so much, Dr. Chetty, and I certainly agree. I think the best way that we're going to learn is if we learn together. So please feel free to engage with each other in the chat, ask questions as well. While we will have facilitators presenting, there's also facilitators in the chat looking out for your questions and responding to you, and you just never know. Sometimes we always feel that a question we have isn't a very clever question, but millions of other people can be thinking that exact same question. So pop it into the chat. We'll try to assist as best as possible. I'm going to run through the program that we're going to be having today really quickly and briefly before I introduce our first speaker. So firstly, we want to ask everyone to try to get started and join the community, right? So Ms. Lindiwe Mahlangu is going to guide you through how to do that, how to become part of this digital community where we are going to support each other. And we know that sometimes the first steps is the hardest steps, knowing where to go, knowing where to sign up, knowing how to log into things. They seem like simple things, but we know those things can really be troublesome and difficult. After that, we're going to run into digital citizenship and addressing gender-specific tech challenges. So as women, what tech challenges do we encounter, or what tech challenges do we feel we don't have a safe space to ask about? And we're going to try to engage in that and try to see how can we assist each other and see how we can develop that report between each other. We're going to also go through different types of digital devices and their applications. So digital devices we already using, some digital devices we maybe saw our parents use, and some digital devices we're starting to see really become more and more popular in the markets today, and we're probably going to be using more frequently. We're going to also be looking at software and the navigation of operating systems. So how do we use our operating systems to our advantage in order to have more benefits from it, rather than have it being something that delays us and takes a lot of our time and makes us feel despondent. We're then going to run into cloud computing with Mr. Wright and online storage as well before we have our closure for the day. But then tomorrow, we want you to remember, please join us again, because we're going to be building on those skills. We're going to be taking a look at web browsers. We're going to be looking at safety and privacy and maintaining that professional online presence. So we're going to be looking at the difference of we have obviously our social media presence, but we also have a professional online presence, like for an example, we'll be looking at LinkedIn. And how do you make sure that your professional online presence is going to be to your benefit and not to your detriment, especially as you enter the job market? We're going to be looking at web browsing essentials and also how to access digital resources online. So finding and accessing those digital resources that can really empower you as you take your journey, your studies, your work, etc. We're going to be going through those things. And then also looking at next steps you can take, not just for the course, but also in your own career and journey. So with that, I really hope you are going to enjoy the 2 days with us, and I'm sure we're all going to learn quite a lot together. I'm going to now hand you over to my colleague, Ms. Lindiwe Mahlangu, and she's going to guide us through how we join the community as learners. Ms. Lindiwe, thank you.
Good evening, students. Thank you, Natma, and welcome to the HeadTech Igniting Women Digital Future Series. I see we have so many students who are attending, and we are going to have fun when doing it. So I'm just going to share my screen. and take you through on how to join this tech today and where are we going to find the activities and everything. So doing that, by saying that, our colleagues will now post a link where we are going to get all the materials where we are going to learn for today's session. So today's session, I'm going to call this session that I will be presenting the train, the Hakamatorokisi. Hakamatorokisi, you know the song by Makazi where he said we are going to Hakamatorokisi. So when we Hakamatorokisi, which means we are not leaving anyone behind. So everybody is going to be with us. We are going to demo this and we are not going to leave anyone behind. So I'm hacking Matorokisi now. Now we start. The first step that we are going to take is to access, and you go to your browser, you type in adov.unisa.ac.za. So are we there? By the show of thumb, please tell me if you are there. The link is going to be posted. So, oh, so many hands. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So if we are there, now you click on the UNISA. You click the first browser that you're going to get, you are going to click on it. So please click on that and then tell me what you see. So you should be in this page. Are we there? Please, if you have a question, don't raise your hands. Just go to the chat and post your question there. And then they will ask you, they will guide you on how to get here. So are we here? Okay, now I'm moving forward. While you are here, you scroll down. Now you are on the Adobe My Learning, My Student Skills Hub. So while you are here, you will see this first one. So you scroll down, and today we will be using this hyperlink, this banner, the Introducing Tech, Igniting Women Digital Future series. Are we there, colleagues? Thank you, thank you. So now you are going to log in. Logging in, you are going to use My Live account. So we all click here. So are we seeing this? Thank you, which means we are moving forward then. We are not leaving anyone behind. Colleagues, please, if you are stuck, please type in on the chat and then you will be assisted. I won't be moving fast, so please we'll wait for those who are struggling. But if you are struggling, please go type on the chat and tell my colleagues that where are you struggling, and they will be able to assist you. Okay, we are moving forward, and then you scroll down. Now we are going to join the community of learning. So when you scroll down, you will see this section. When you are on this section, you just click the hyperlink. And it is loading. And now you will be here. Are we all here? I know you are going to struggle a bit with the network, but are we all here? I can't see the chat, colleagues. Are we? Thumbs up, colleagues, if we are here.
Lots of thumbs up, Lindewe.
A lot of thumbs up. Oh, I can't see it anymore. Okay, thank you. We are moving forward now. So while you are here, we are going to join the community. So if you have joined the community, this part, if you have joined, you will see that you have joined. And then if you haven't joined, it will say join somewhere here. Or on your drop down arrows, those little three dots, you click there, and then if you have joined, if you haven't joined, it will say join. If you have joined, it will say leave the community. So you don't want to leave the community, you must stay joined. Are we there? Okay, now we are moving forward. Now we are joining the community. We have all joined the community. Okay, all right, now, when you have joined the community, you need to introduce yourself. On your far right, we have these pinned activities. On your far right, we have these pinned activities. You will have to click on introduce yourself. Now comes the fun part. You are going to introduce yourself. I'm not going to read the instructions for you. You are going to read the instructions and join the community by introducing yourself. And then you are going to read the questions and join the community by clicking here on comment. Then you write your introduction on the box. In the box, you answer the questions here. So you're going to introduce yourself by reading the questions. And question 2 on this, it says, if you prefer, you can record a short video introducing yourself using your device. So there is that opportunity that you can record yourself. If you go down right here, you will see you can record yourself. You record yourself and post it. And you can use images, you can use a GIF, but today we are not to attach any file. We only use these 3, including this one. So you can go ahead and introduce yourself. I'm going to give you 2 minutes to do that. So let's go ahead and do it. Are we leaving anyone behind before I set the time? Okay, you will write on the chat. So go ahead, 2 minutes. 1 minute down. Thank you. Time is up. How many have introduced themselves? Do we have the number? I cannot see. Is that the numbers, Richard?
Yes, so there's 18 new, 19, so it's counting up.
Oh, that's nice. Sanelisiwe and the others, Tony, Tembeka, please, if you have a question, please type in the chat. And if you are leaving behind, please tell us where you are so that we know where we left you. And colleagues, if ever we have left you behind, that's a mistake. But this session has been recorded, so you will get the recording of this session so that you can listen or follow at your own pace. So you don't have to worry, but the session has been recorded.
Anyway, just a quick note. So the ADOVH platform is currently giving login problems. So if it says timeout, for instance, we posted a direct link to the community in the chat. Anyway, there's just a couple. Can you perhaps go back to the main page of the community and just show where the link is to activity 1?
Yeah.
No, on the Viva Engage, the third one from the left. Yeah, that one.
This one. No, man.
Yeah, thereby pinned. Introduce yourself.
Oh, here.
Yes.
Yes. So this is where you get the first activity for introducing yourself. So you click on that one and then it will take you here. Then you introduce yourself here. So are we cool, colleagues? Can I move?
Yes, I think most have made their comments.
Okay.
Or introduce themselves.
All right. Thank you, colleagues. That's all about introducing yourself. Now we are moving to the presentation. These are the steps that you should follow when you, the recap of how you get to the introduce yourself. You're going here and step 2 and step 3 and step 4, and then you are in. So, colleagues, please, we have a pre-assessment. The pre-assessment is the assessments that will determine you that when you joined, when you first came, when you first and got the invitation and you accepted the invite and then you wanted to attend this training, what was your thinking behind? What exactly were you wanting to gain from this when you heard that there's a HairTech course that is taking place? So you need to go in and access this pre-assessment, complete it fairly, and then that's when we will know what were you expecting and everything. And then from there, we are going to, at the end of this course, we are going to get a post-assessment where again, you are going to evaluate the course and its activities. So we are starting my presentation. So thank you for everybody who has joined the community, and those who haven't joined the community, you can do it at a later stage. There's no problem in that. So we haven't left you behind. You can still join at a later stage. So tomorrow we're still going to go back there and check if everybody has joined and how was the activity for introducing yourself. So the best introduction, it will be announced tomorrow by Ms. Natma. So addressing gender-specific tech challenges. Women face a unique bias in tech, but this can be overcome. Colleagues, we can overcome this because gender stereotypes discourage women from pursuing technology. Gender stereotypes is it mustn't be a norm, and it is critical to get support. So we have to challenge the norm. We need to challenge the norm as women. Women belong in technology, and success stories are there to prove it. Representation, seeing women in technology is always being there. It has been there, but the thing is, we are not recognized. But the bias, gender bias is there, and we are not going to get away from it. I remember the first time when my daughter came to me and said to me and the dad and say, I'm going to do plumbing. And we were like, no. And my husband said, just give her 2 months. And then from there, she will quit. And 4 years later, she hasn't quitted, and she's at it and she's doing fine. So there are jobs that the thinking is only men can do it. So in technology as well, there's nothing that can stop us. We can do it, and we can overcome this. So, for example, we have Ida Lovelace, the first computer programmer, and companies now are actively recruiting women in tech in the role like Google, Microsoft, Amazon. So there's nothing that is stopping us from being a successful woman in tech. So understanding gender stereotypes. Gender stereotypes are a perceived notion about roles, attribute, and capabilities based on gender. Impact on technology. These stereotypes suggest men are more suitable for STEM field, discouraging women for pursuing the tech careers. For example, consider a classroom where students are asked to design a basic website. So we have students, I think it was last year, about 3 students, we heard there was a hackathon tournament that was held in Johannesburg, and we were surprised that on the group that UNISA students were, I think about 16 students from UNISA participated in that competition. And guess what? 3 female students have completed a game and was presented, and they came out 3rd place. So there's nothing that is going to stop women now from being technology minded and working using technology. So we have to challenge the norm. Awareness, recognizing and questioning gender stereotype is the first step. So we need to challenge the stereotypes. And then presentation. Importance of seeing successful women in tech inspire others. So if we see more women in technology, see more women working in ICT, seeing more women programming, that's when it's going to inspire more students, more women and students in Tunisia to pursue the career of technology. So, the next slide, building confidence in the use of technology. Start small. Being with manageable tasks and gradually takes more complex project. You need to start small. Continuous learning. We need to stay with tools and techniques through courses and workshops. We can focus and enroll more in free platforms like LinkedIn Learning and YouTube for tech skills. Ask for help. Colleagues, we need to ask for help. If you got stuck like the others that they've raised their hand when I say thumbs up, ask for help. And on the chat, when you need help, or on that community that you have joined, you need help, you just type, be specific. Don't just say, I'm stuck. Don't just say, I have challenges. Just be specific, to the point, and say, I'm stuck here. I tried to log in. I'm here and I can't move forward. Like Richard says, we have a technology problems. We cannot, I cannot, I think most students, they were stuck because they saw that nothing is happening on their screen. So they start panicking. You don't have to panic. You just go to the community right there. I'm stuck, I'm here, and I need help. And you'll be assisted. If you don't ask for help, you will not get assistance. So we need to start, as women, start supporting each other, giving each other encouragement, mentor each other, collaborate with other students. Like when we say about collaborating with other students, in those platforms where you get students, when you enroll for modules, there are platforms where the discussion forums that students are forming. So if you join there for your modules and whatever, you just go to that section and then you ask for help. There's nothing there, like Ms. Natma said, there's no stupid question. Every question is valid. If you are struggling and if you have a question, don't be afraid to state your question. Don't be afraid to just ask for help. More help and more question, help will come your way. So by saying that, when we go back to, just hold on for me. When you go back to our activities, we have homework. So for that part of gender stereotypes, we have homework for that. And that homework, you are going to, when you click on that pinned section, you go there, it will open for you. There is homework there that you need to complete. So by completing the homework, you need again to go on comment and write your answers under comment. That's for homework number 1 of the day. So colleagues, I'm going to end here today, but please note that all these are going to be your homeworks and activities that you are going to do at a later stage, or if you have time, you can even start now. But now, Ms. Semi and Mr. Haberstad, they are going to continue with the training for today and activities of today. And please carry on and move forward and listen and enjoy the rest of the activities. Thank you. Back to you, Ms. Nathma.
Thank you so much, Lindiwe, and I certainly do agree with you. The only way that we challenge the stereotypes is actually by immersing ourselves in that environment and building ourselves. And we always say that the only way that we challenge those stereotypes is when we're in the spaces. So when many people say only men, for example, know how to use technological devices, when they see women in the spaces using the tech devices, that's a means already of challenging those stereotypes that everyone holds. So I'm going to dive into some of the more technical aspects. I will share my screen in a second. And before we do that, I just want to ask, when you think of your digital devices, what is the first device that comes to your mind? When you think of the word digital device, maybe you can pop it into the chat. Is there anything that comes to your mind when you think of that word? I see a lot of cell phones. I see a lot of laptops. I see more cell phones. That's good. Lots of cell phones, lots of laptops. Okay, that's quite a lot of responses. I also see PC. Is there anything else anyone's thinking about that we maybe missed out on? Okay, really good. The second thing I want to ask you about, when you think of that digital devices, and keep responding, when you think of that digital device that you use, what do you use it the most for? Do you use it the most for, let's say, messaging people? Do you use it the most for phone calls? Do you use it the most for photographs? What do you use those devices for the most? If you just think of one given day, what is the most usage that you're going to be using it? And I see even the first question is generating interesting answers like smart TVs. I see some people are indicating they use their phones for reading, social media, chats, yes, all of those things. Really, communication, that's a fantastic answer. I see someone has even put in a long, that's fantastic. Phone calls, chatting, really good responses. And I think something that was highlighted in one response is that it's communication. Whether we take a photograph of something and we share it with someone, we're communicating. Whether we send a message, whether we call someone, we're basically communicating. When you complete an assignment and you share the information in your assignment, you're actually communicating what you've learned. You're also communicating what you've produced. So why I've asked these questions is just to highlight and to bring awareness to how often you actually using something called a digital device. So we hear these words and it sounds scary, but in reality, it's something we use every day. We've seen that digital devices have now become part of your day where you can't go without it. We can just think about when load shedding hits and our phones die and our laptops die and it's a disaster. We actually feel like our world is ending. Even when it comes to assignments, before we'd have to hand in handwritten assignments or use the post office, and we're starting to see post offices disappearing and only online applications being accepted. We're starting to see that these digital devices that allow us to access things, they're irreplaceable at this stage. And they're not just irreplaceable, but they're necessary for us to learn, to progress, and to entertain ourselves. So digital devices aren't something that's just boring. And I think we know that on the flip side, it's something that really brings a lot of joy to us, whether it's scrolling through our Instagram, TikToks, etc. Obviously, we've got to be careful not to get lost in it, because I'm sure we all from time to time do struggle. But we see that it really forms a large part of our life. And when we look at even our tracking of our time that we spend on these devices, sometimes we're really shocked. We also want to look at what's the purpose of these devices, and why is it crucial to leverage their true potential to improve the quality of life. So what's the interesting thing is we have these digital devices and we all indicated what we use it most for. But the reality is we actually have something very powerful that can be used for so many other things that can save us time and save us energy. So we just want to look a little bit at the foundations or the fundamentals of these devices to just see how do we use our device, or how do we buy our devices. And I saw at the beginning someone indicated, I still don't have my laptop. And that's important, because that means you might be able to see something today that guides your purchase. And those purchases are investments in your future as well. So stay tuned everyone. Let's dive through before I go too much on these digital devices. So the two most common ones that came up in the chat was obviously our smartphones and our tablets, right? Now, when we're referencing smartphones, we're speaking about any portable devices, and that has the functionalities of these mobile phones. We have high resolution touchscreens. I think if we think back, we had these flip phones and we had little pixelated screens, etc. We've moved far beyond that. We even see now that our phones are so powerful. They contain these powerful processors. They have various types of functionality. You can use your phone as a map. You can use your phone as, for example, a camera, a high quality camera as well. You can use it as a video camera. You can use it for voice recordings. You can use it for so many different things today that it's now become multifunctional. You have your operating systems, and I always reference this. We have the Android and we have iOS, and we always have the debate whether or not we have our smartphones, or is it, for example, our Apple products, which one is better? And we have the Samsung and Apple debate that always comes into play. But we even see these devices, the functionality has different advantages and disadvantages. When it comes to tablets, we see that they are larger, so they're better for viewing and for seeing things on a bigger screen and presentations. They have a lot of the same features as smartphones, and they can also be paired with different accessories. So we know that some of our tablets come already with a keyboard. They come with a mouse as well. And sometimes we could connect external devices as well to just make it a little bit easier, and also when we take our ergonomic concerns into consideration. So when we're using tablets, sometimes it's not really convenient to be typing on the tablet, but you might have a keyboard that's ergonomically aligned to help with your wrist support, to make sure you don't really have back problems or neck problems afterwards. And in that situation, you can attach these accessories, especially if you have to use the device for extended periods of time and for very arduous tasks. So those are the two that you guys highlighted, and they are two that we really can see is fundamental. We also look at our smartphone applications, right? And we already referenced, these are voice calls, video calls, instant messaging. We can just think about it in one day. And if all of us just have to guess, and you can post in the chat how many just WhatsApp messages you send a day. Please don't send your messages. Just send us the amount of messages you just estimate you send in a day. That already tells you how frequently you're communicating with this channel. We also have our web browsers. Now, when it comes to your web browsers and you're accessing the internet, you can use it for anything, whether or not you want to know what are you making for supper, what are you going to study today, where's the updates on the news or any transactions that's taking place. You can use those web browsers. We see media consumption again. I think the key that we start to see that when we look at these three items is balancing it. So not to use it too much for media consumption or not to use it too much for communication, but to have a healthy balance of all three. With our tablet application, it's the same. We can use it for movies, but we've got to be honest. We also use our smartphones from time to time for movies. We use it for productivity means, managing your emails, creating presentations, especially when you go into a work environment. While taking, for example, a smartphone application may look a little bit unprofessional if you're doing a formal presentation, taking a tablet doesn't have that effect. You actually still look very prepared and very professional and also very modernized. So that's really a good tip and trick. If you're doing a presentation and you have a tablet, take it with you. When it comes to your creative work, this is really great. I don't know if there's any graphic designers with us today, or anybody that loves to play around with creativity tools. You can really use your tablets when it comes to drawing and painting. And we have Adobe, we have Procreate, we even have now, but this is going to go over into some of the other courses that you'll see on our site with artificial intelligence, where you can create beautiful works of art essentially, and then you can edit it with these functional software. So you can really use your smartphone to create works of art today, and it's become really, really amazing. When it comes to our personal computers, so I saw something interesting. There wasn't a lot of people that said, okay, they're using personal computers every day. I think most of the times when we think of personal computers, we think of very specific places. Maybe we think about our regional unis, so offices where you can go sometimes in and access a desktop. Now, what's the biggest difference when it comes to this? We know that while laptops are portable and you don't really need to be plugged into electricity to use it the entire time, because it does have it is battery powered already. With a desktop, you do need to have that power supply in a lot of cases. However, it does give you much more power, which means that if you are going to be doing very, very strenuous activities that requires a lot of power from your PC, you might want to rather use a desktop. But if you're using it for everyday tasks, your laptop really will do the trick. We obviously know already all these components that come with these desktops, but we also know that in a lot of cases, it's very difficult to have that access to desktops on an everyday basis. When we look at our laptops, now, this is really interesting. We see that the laptops also, we use it for office work the same way that we can use desktops, but with office work, sometimes we're also working in a very hybrid fashion. So what do I mean by hybrid fashion? We're starting to see that we work in office and we work at home. And in the case of the laptop, it's way, way easier to be able to take your work with you and be able to work without that interruption or without the requirement of being in a specific place. When it comes to your operating systems, we see that we have Windows, we have Mac OS, and we have Linux and Chrome OS. We have all these operating systems as well as Android and Windows, for example, but we'll dive into it a little bit more as we go along. The key thing is that we see that we have these personal computers, and personal computers include both those laptops and those desktops. Okay, so we've already looked at a lot of these things. The applications that I want you to think of, and again, even though the applications are in one section, for example, word processing, spreadsheet, presentations, PowerPoint, those things, even though it's a laptop application, they can be used in desktops and vice versa. So we'll run through them, but just remember, just because it's under that specific heading doesn't mean it's just left in that heading. So applications that you want to look at for your office work and also for your studies would be word processors, your spreadsheets, your presentations, your PowerPoint, your Excel, and your MS Word. So in the chat, can anyone let me know that when you think of, for example, Microsoft Word, Excel, and PowerPoint, which one seems the most foreign, or which one seems the most difficult, or which one have you not used at all? Would you say it's Microsoft Word? Would you say it's Excel, or would you say it's PowerPoint? I see Excel's popping up. Excel was really my nemesis when I was in high school years ago. So I do feel that. I see some PowerPoint as well. I see Excel's really making a star appearance. And I do agree. Excel, maybe we're less familiar with it, but it is becoming more and more important to be able to access and to be able to use it. And the key thing is, once you learn for the first time, it becomes really much more easier. PowerPoint, I see is as well is featuring, but one thing that's very positive, I see Microsoft Word isn't gaining so much traction in the chat, which is an indication that a lot of us is using Microsoft Word, which makes a lot of sense because we're using it for our day-to-day studies, which is really important. But what you can actually do is that when you learn how to leverage or use Excel and PowerPoint, You can take that, you can take your Word from Microsoft Word, and you can actually give it a new life. You can transform it into a presentation that you can share with the entire world or with your audience, and you can make it way more dynamic and engaging. Thank you so much. And I see still Excel is making a big appearance. When it comes to web development and programming, I don't know if we have any coders in the audience, but we do see that laptops do the trick, especially when it comes to software design and when it comes to visual studios. You can use your laptop to use this. And we also know that we have a lot of programmers that are working remotely and they're going to see clientele. And in that case, this is perfect for them because they can take their work with them. We also have design and creative work. So we have Adobe, Photoshop again, Illustrator and Premiere Pro, where you can really bring things to life. And laptop applications, they really do allow you to do that. When it comes to desktops, now we see here, you're going to need high performance tasks. And before we reference that you need a lot of power, and we'll go into the definition of power a little bit later on. But what we see is that when you want to do things like 3D modeling of images, when you want to engage in high-level gaming, you generally do need a desktop. Not always, but in a lot of cases, or you'll have to basically upgrade certain aspects of your laptop in order to run it. You also, when it comes to desktop applications, it's easier to run multiple applications at the same time without the problem of things becoming really slow and your entire system crashing, which does happen. It's happened to me a million times when I'm not cautious. We also have professional workstations like architecture, engineering, graphic design. When it becomes very specific, especially if you're considering going into engineering, if you're considering going into graphic design, try to start to familiarize yourself, with the desktop. Try to use it a little bit, whether or not it's gaining access at the regional office, or if you have one at home, try to start working on it just so that you can gain that skills. Okay, so we see that the applications of laptops and desktops, we've already gone through that. You can write code, you can develop software, you literally just need that laptop or that desktop. You can engage in anything, or you can create anything that you want to do when you have these personal computers. So what does this tell us? This tells us basically that when you have a personal computer, whether it's a laptop or desktop, you can already take your ideas and create something from it, and you can actually earn an income from it, or you can start to develop your skills so that you're job ready, or you're ready for the job market itself. Okay, something I think this did pop up once or twice in the chat, but something that's gaining more and more popularity is wearables. Now, if you guys can tell me, if you, with just a thumbs up, if you think wearables will become more and more popular, please let me know, because this is something that really divides people. We see some people with smartwatches, and then we see other people kind of looking at everyone with smartwatches as if they're really crazy. But what's the fantastic thing about it is it's going to play a key factor in telling you how healthy you are, or what activities you're engaging in on a day-to-day basis. So that's going to be interesting, because imagine if you actually had a device that's telling you you need to run a little bit more today. You've been watching too much TV, you've been sitting in front of the screen. You'd have that consciousness essentially. So whether or not this becomes more popular, I see a lot of thumbs up in it, but it will be interesting, and it will be interesting to see if we can improve our life with it, because that's the key. We want to take these devices and we don't want them to make our lives worse. We want them to make our lives better. Smart glasses, we're seeing this is really becoming more and more interesting as well. We're seeing wearable cameras. Okay, now wearable cameras can also become a privacy concern. So if you're capturing photos and videos from your perspective, make sure you're not taking photos of other people without their consent, especially if you're posting. But it's going to be interesting to see how it develops. We have smart clothing that incorporates the sensors to monitor your biometric data. We're seeing a lot of the times our sportsmen are really using this, and that's basically being used to improve their sports functionality. So to identify, okay, when it comes to this, what is their activity essentially, and how can they improve it essentially to become better? We also see that we have virtual reality headsets, which is really interesting as well. And my colleagues, David and Richard, they actually really can show you how to use these virtual reality headsets. If we ever visiting your region, please do join us. They usually do have it with them as well, where you actually go into a virtual environment. I do have to tell you to proceed with caution. The first time I tried virtual reality glasses, I was told to walk the plank into an ocean. It was an awful experience, but absolutely amazing, especially if you're a gamer. You will absolutely love it. The same with augmented reality, where you have an overlay of a digital information onto the real world. Now, this caught us a couple of years ago. I don't know if anyone played Pokemon Go. I'm guessing not, but if you did, you'll know exactly what's augmented reality. So with Pokemon Go, essentially, it would show you that there's something in your environment. It isn't really there, but that is what is being displayed. And it's as if it's there in reality, which was really good. So like I see in the chat with Taryn Lee, yes, we were catching Pokemons. We were going to virtual gyms. We were battling it out with our nemesis that we created, that we never ever met, but we just knew their name. The great thing was the virtual gym would be at the same physical gym. So you'd see people parked in their cars, basically fighting in these virtual arenas, not physical fighting, nothing dangerous, but virtual fighting with these Pokemons. It was really, really cool. And we're seeing great developments. So try to keep your eye on it. When you do get an opportunity to go to conferences, to meet up with us when we come to visit the region, try to really make that effort, because you might have the opportunity to access the virtual reality headsets and make use of it, or at least use it and see what's it about. Okay, wearables. Okay, again, we're touching on the health monitoring, something that we don't really check. So if you just think about your day-to-day, how many times do you check whether or not you've done something that contributes to your health? You don't really do that. You don't really know what's your heart rate, your resting heart rate. You don't know what's your blood pressure. We don't know any of these things. But these things are fundamental for us to have long lives and long, healthy lives. Remember, we don't want to really grow sick and old, but we want to grow old and healthy. So that is where we see these wearables really coming into play. And when it comes to the augmented reality, it's us now engaging with our environment, seeing that even though we have a physical world, we also have an augmented world. And that's fantastic, because that means we can live in two worlds at the same time. It's really, really cool. Okay, the next thing I think a lot of us get a little bit nervous about is smart home devices. So does anybody have any smart home devices? Even if it's something, we have these smart sensors, we have smart security systems, we have smart switches with your lights. Alexa, yes, that's a perfect one that was referenced. We have these smart speakers where you can actually just speak to something and it will turn on your lights, it will lock up your doors, etc. In a lot of countries, it is developing at a rapid rate. Sometimes, obviously, there's a lot of cautions, but it's really interesting to see how they're coming in and how they can make our lives much better as well, obviously, as we proceed with caution. Something that's really great is that a lot of the times they are voice activated, which means if you're somebody that really doesn't like typing all the time, or if you're somebody that really likes speaking, in this situation, you can make use of it. If you are also struggling with any visual impairments, etc., this is the perfect solution as well. And it does become a virtual assistant that can really help you out on a day-to-day basis. And I think the key thing is we all just love being able to say something and it's done immediately. Thermostats for remotely controlling your home temperature. So I don't know if we can imagine the future where before we get home, sometimes our homes are really warm or they're really cold, but being able to access it from our device and saying, please put the air conditioner on, please put the heater on, and then getting home to the perfect environment. That is something that we're seeing play out in the future, which could be interesting. If you're excited about it, please give us a thumbs up. If you're afraid, you can really put a shocked face. It is something that a lot of people are divided on. The key thing is to learn how to use it responsibly and to see how you can make sure it improves your life and again, doesn't dampen your life. Okay, moving on. We see digital devices and the applications. Again, just understand how's it going to enhance your productivity. For example, if using a digital device to, for example, cut out a task is going to improve your life. If you've got a smart home, for example, and you tell the device in the future, if we have this, if you tell the device, please make sure the house is heated, and that saves you even 5 to 10 minutes of your time. We know time is precious. It will also ensure that you have a very conducive environment to working, essentially. So we don't know really that big impact those small changes can make on us. And then next, always be informed about the decision, right? So again, before you buy a device, do research on the device. And we've got different ways of doing research on the device. You'll see on our site that Ms. Lindiwe took you through. We also have sessions on artificial intelligence and how to use it, to ask it for information that can guide you on how to choose a device, and then cross-referencing that information. But really, make an informed decision. Don't just go with the crowd. See if it's going to make your life much better, and see also if you agree with everything. For example, if it indicates it needs to collect information, it's going to do this, then maybe you make the decision that that's not something you want to sign up for and you'd rather avoid it. Okay, now when we went through our functions of our digital devices, we know that our digital devices have different components. So when we say a cell phone, or when we think of a smartphone, we see our smartphones, right? But we know there's a lot of small parts that it's made up of. Usually we only realize when we drop our smartphones and it's shattered to pieces and it breaks. That's when we kind of go, oh my goodness, there's so many pieces that's actually powering this. Or when our smartphones break and we take it in for repairs and it's something really small that's prevented us from being able to use it. So we need to take a look at these fundamental components and how to do research on these fundamental components that make up our devices. And we also need to understand what's the basics in order to utilize the devices. So how do we use our devices better? Okay, so the first thing, or our first keyword, is our central processing unit, the CPU. So when we talk about the CPU, usually when people say the word CPU, we can get a bit stressed. Don't get a bit stressed. We have the perfect analogy. It's really like the brain. So when you think about the brain is really more or less at the center, we could say. It's interpreting instructions and it's executing those instructions from your software applications. It's taking that information and transforming it from one format to another. It will usually get these instructions from the device's memory, and that's why we're going to look at memory and why memory is important. It's then going to take those instructions from the memory and decode it. And this is really interesting because it's really amazing how it's able to decode that information. And once it's able to decode that information, it will understand this is the actions that it has to usually engage in. And we usually go into, for example, we know that like a computer language, you say that we have these ones and these zeros, and this is the code essentially that it understands, but we don't have to dive into that today. We then also say that we have the execution of instructions. So what do we see on the other side? We see something like when we open our apps or we browse the internet, we see that taking place. That's the actual execution of these instructions that we've engaged in. Our CPU's power is really important. It's going to tell us what's the speed and the efficiency of the device. So if you take a look at your CPU, and when you look at the description of the CPU prior to buying it, you will be able to see this is the speed and this is the efficiency of the device. And my colleagues, Richard and David, they will put in the chat what to look out for when it comes to the CPU. That could be red warning alarm bells or signs that you should look out for, or what could be a really good indicator. Remember, we said already, CPU power, you've got to align the power with what's the task. If you are a gamer, you've got to know, okay, you're going to need a lot of CPU, especially if you're playing online games. If you're going to be doing video editing and data analysis, especially the degree to which you're doing it, then you've got to really take into consideration that CPU's power. We have two different types of CPUs, multi-core processors that handle multiple tasks simultaneously. That's great for multitasking. So usually you can switch between tasks and you don't really sit with much of a problem. And then we also have clock speed, which is measured in gigahertz. So this indicates how fast your CPU can process the instructions. So that will tell you how fast it's going to essentially work. When it comes to your memory or your RAM, right? We have our memory or our RAM, which is crucial, okay? And this is going to be the workspace. This is the primary workspace. Remember we said that this is essentially where we are going to get that information from. So RAM is going to hold your data and your instructions that the CPU needs. So you've got your CPU is going to go to your RAM and try to extract that information, and then it's going to try to read it and access it in order to perform the task. So why is our RAM important? Remember that when you're looking at the RAM of your device, that's what's going to allow you to run your applications. It's going to allow you to multitask effectively without slowing down. Now, slowing down, you might think, okay, it's not such a bad thing, but sometimes it's really a disaster. It could be trying to do a presentation and nothing wants to move forward. It also frustrates you, which may make you just want to give up in the middle of your assignment because you're not really focusing on the assignment, but you're focusing on your device that's not working efficiently. We also say that when it comes to crucial, it's also crucial for high editing resolution videos or running multiple applications, like we said. It's really good for multitasking and better performance, especially if you have resource intensive applications. Again, only invest in a very expensive device with more RAM if you're going to use it. That's the other aspect that you should take into consideration. Okay, so we have different types of RAM. We have DDR4. We also have DDR5, right? We say DDR5 is faster and more efficient than your DDR4. It improves the speed and the responsiveness of the devices. Also, when it comes to the choice of RAM, that can significantly affect the device's overall performance. So really, consider the two. And I want to give you everyone a little bit of homework. I think we all have access to our web browsers. If you can search what is the definition of DDR4 and DDR5, and you can put it into the chat, just 2 or 3 sentences, that will really, really be great for us. And I think we'll see who can get that the fastest for us. Okay, moving on, we have storage. This is another vital thing you need to look at before you buy your device. And also, when buying these devices, don't be afraid to ask the salesperson and to inquire about it, but also take your own information with you at the same time. So we have different types of storage. When it comes to the storage, you want to think of where your files are going to go, your applications and your operating systems. And this is where where your device basically keeps all the information when you turn it off. So I think you can imagine that if we didn't have storage, every time we switched off our laptops and our phones, etc., guess what? Everything would disappear and we'd have to start new. That would be a disaster. So here we see that's the importance of our storage. So we have something like hard drives. When it comes to hard drives, it's going to be your spinning disks, which is going to read and write your data. That's really considered your older technology, we'd say. You also have your solid state drives, which is faster, more reliable, which uses flash memory. We have external devices. I think one I grew up with, but it's quickly becoming obsolete. My colleague Richard always reminds me is the USB flash drives, which we used to just walk around with. But now we're seeing that it's really not the best means to store your information. And when it becomes corrupt, you can really lose a lot of information as well. We also have external hard drives and SD cards. We know SD cards are interchangeable sometimes with our laptops and our phones, which is great for functionality. And we usually use it for additional capacity. Sometimes when we want to back up our pictures, our information, we'll transfer, and when we want to transfer from device to device. When it comes to cloud storage, and we've got another course that covers cloud storage as well, this is really important, learning how to use cloud storage in order to save your storage space on your device. And I'm learning to do this now. Now only I'm learning how to actually do this effectively and efficiently, and I'm starting to see the effects of it. Where before I thought, oh my gosh, my device is really slow, but in reality, my storage, my means of storing things was ineffective. Now, what what's great is you can use Google Drive, you can use Dropbox, and you can use OneDrive. And something that's really awesome, the first time I used Dropbox, it really wasn't for studying. I'm going to be honest with you. Someone sent me a movie that I really wanted to watch, and we couldn't really, you can't really send it on email, you can't do it, etc. in different ways. And Dropbox was really great in that specific means, and I was able to access it. It was really cool. The benefits of this is that it's really ideal for collaborative work and to also have your data safety from your local device failures. So for example, when you have this cloud storage, someone else can access it. Who you give permission to, always make sure your permission settings are good, and don't share it obviously with individuals that's not trusted or it's not intended for, but they can also work on it. So if you use Google Drive and you're sharing documents, you can work together, you can collaborate, you can track changes, which is awesome, which means you don't have to send documents back and forth. When it comes to data safety, if your local device, if something happens to it, where the water falls on it or you drop it down the building or something insane happens or somebody steals it, in that case, your data is still safe and you can just access it on another device. So while you can't get your favorite phone back, you can get your data back, which is a little bit of a silver lining. Your storage capacity. Now, when you're looking for storage capacity, you're going to see that storage capacity is either measured in your gigabytes or your terabytes. So look out for that. So smartphones, you'll already see that the price of smartphones go up usually when it comes to the gigabytes. So you'll see that your smartphones have a gigabyte of 64 to 256 gigabytes, while your computers might have 1 terabyte or more. And obviously we can see how that impacts it. You can store more things. That's why frequently we've got to either upload our photos to the iCloud or to storage, but when it comes to our computers, we can store way more things, but your phone will usually become really, really full. When it comes to your power supply, and I do apologize if I'm going a bit fast, let me slow down a bit. So when it comes to your power supply, okay, so this component provides you with the necessary electricity for your digital device. So this is your PSU. When it comes to larger devices like your desktop, it's going to take the electricity from the wall, right? And it's going to go into the internal components. So this, if you look at this image, it looks really strange because I, for one, do not have a desktop in my home. So I'm not really looking at this device on a day-to-day basis. But if you do see it, now you know what the functionality is. We see that we have rechargeable lithium-ion batteries, and that's usually used in our laptops, our smartphones, our tablets, and our smartwatches. But also remember, when it comes to our lithium-ion batteries, you also have to take care and you have to look after these batteries. So there's also very advisable ways of charging your devices to the full capacity prior to using and not interrupting it. And that really, it's usually intended or it's indicated to extend the lifespan of those batteries. So it sounds crazy, but it really does work in the long end. You can really keep a device for a long time. I know myself, I've kept my phone right now for about 5 years, which is crazy, and it still works like new. When it comes to your battery life and management, okay, battery life is going to vary on your device. We know that as well. Sometimes there's the debate, and I think in the chat we can indicate who believes the iPhone has better battery life than the Samsung. Please put it into the chat. I'm really curious to see it, but please don't fight as well. But when it comes to your battery life, again, there's ways that you can extend your battery life. There's also, for example, you can dim your screen. You can also close your background applications so that they're not continuously running and really taking or draining your battery life. Try to do those things, and in that way you'll see that your battery life does last a little bit longer, especially if you are hit with load shedding. We do know that's a reality. In that situation, you want to close as many applications that you have and just keep your life, your battery life, for the key things that you need to complete. Remember that power intensive tasks, gaming for one, is going to drain your battery. I know that from experience. And then also be cautious. If you're using your phone or your laptop, sometimes it can reduce the lifespan of your battery, in my experience at least, but I could be incorrect. When it comes to connectivity, right? So we all know that even though we have devices, even if you have the best device in the world, the device is kind of not useless, but it's really not much unless you can be connected to other people. So what do I mean connected? I mean that you have your internet access to a degree. Now, how do we gain these internet accesses? How do we gain access to other devices? How do we gain access to networks? Usually our favorite one is Wi-Fi, right? We really love places that give us access to free Wi-Fi. Obviously, always check your privacy settings before you do access it. And we know that Wi-Fi stands for wireless internet connection using radio waves. So we know Wi-Fi is amazing. You can literally, if you've got the password, if you've been given the password, let's say that rather, you can access that internet and you can use it essentially. We also have fiber that's also really supporting our Wi-Fi, which is great. We have Bluetooth. I remember Bluetooth was super popular back in the days, but now we're seeing that it's really becoming more popular with our keyboards. So using a Bluetooth keyboard or mouse or headphones in particular is really cool, and also for your data transfer. When it comes to cellular networks, we have 4G and 5G, which allows us to have some allowing connectivity, right? That's away from Wi-Fi. So we're seeing that 4G and 5G, it's gaining popularity. We're also gaining access to it, and the infrastructure is developing. It's going to be interesting to see how that develops and how fast, essentially, our connections will be. We also have Ethernet, which provides us with stable and high-speed internet, and that's used a lot in desktops. And I know I've skipped through it, but if you can think of Ethernet, it plugs almost directly into your device. Now, the next thing we look at is our peripherals. So peripherals, you think of your periphery vision, it's things you can see outside or something that's external. It would be things like your keyboards, your mouse, your touch screens, your scanners. So the next time someone speaks about these peripheral devices, don't stand there and think, oh my goodness, what is this person speaking about? It's something simplistic. It's firstly the input devices, which I referenced. So input devices you use to put information into something. Output gives you information out. You can see the information, you can hear the information, you can now see what you've created. We then have our storage devices, which is your USBs we spoke about, and external hard drives that usually can store much more information. With peripheral connectivity, it connects via your USB ports. So we really know that's almost like plug and play that you have. The same with Bluetooth and other connections like HDMI cables that my colleague Richard and David taught me about, and your display ports, all of those things, they're all peripheral connectivity devices that you can access and use. So the next time you think of the peripheral devices, just think about these things because it's things that we really do use. Okay, the logic and the motherboard. So when it comes to the motherboard, we don't really have to dive too much into it, but when we think about it, we see it's the main circuit board that connects all the components of your digital devices. So I remember when smartphones were just being released, we could actually open the devices. I don't recommend you do this at all. Please don't do it, but we would do it and we'd actually see the motherboards. And I'm sure a lot of people have seen it as well. And it really looked like something strange, but something so amazing. So what does this motherboard have? It has your CPU, it has your RAM, it has your GPU and your storage drives, as well as the slots for upgrades. When it comes to data transfer, it facilitates the communication with the CPU, the memory, and the components. So basically, this motherboard is connecting everything together. It's the place where you see everything being connected. It's also distributing the power. So when you think of the motherboard, it's something that's kind of in charge of everything, or it's housing everything. And we can even think of our mothers. They're usually housing everything, the entire family, and coordinating everything and making sure everyone gets what they need. We also have it for the customization and the expansion. So it will offer slots and connectors that can allow you to add more RAM for better graphic cards or additional storage. Okay, so I think we've covered this digital devices and the functionality of it, and just touched on a little bit the 4 things you need to look at when you are buying a device in order to buy a device that's going to serve you. We know that sometimes when we go into, I'm speaking from experience, when you go into a shop and you want to buy a device, sometimes you feel like you don't know what to ask, you don't know where to start, and you have to rely on the information someone else is giving you. And in that situation, you are at a disadvantage. So empower yourself. Take these 4 words, put them into ChatGPT, put them into your Google search. Try to find out what's the best ones for your specific needs. Take that information and now go to the shop and start using the terminology. And again, that's how we take up space in the tech world, where we show we're learning about it. Remember, nobody knows everything. It's impossible. The only way that we start is when we start to use these keywords. So when we start to use the word motherboard, or when we start to use the word peripherals instead of using the word, for example, mouse or keyboard, that's when we start to develop confidence with it. Okay, so now I'm going to hand over to my colleague Richard for a small demo on how to search for online devices, and then he's going to guide you through an activity. Richard, can I hand over to you?
Okay, thank you, Nathan. So I'm just going to share my screen quickly with you. Okay, everyone, so this is just a quick demonstration. So you learned all about the different hardwares that makes up a device. And most devices, even phones, consist of the same components. So as you might have heard, there's quite a different types of CPUs and RAM speeds and all of that you need to look at. So I'm just quickly going to show you, for instance, say you're interested in buying a laptop, for instance, and you can go to a store like Credible Connection. So obviously you will always search, around a bit if you're interested in a device. What is the reviews? What is its specs? YouTube is good, probably usually the best at, giving reviews where they break down what is its strengths and its weaknesses. So that is things that you need to consider, and that's also how you learn about devices and the different types of specs for devices. So I'm just going to add 2 devices here. Then we can have a look just quickly at their specs. So I'm going to look for specifically, perhaps if we can find one. I saw a question about AMD, so let's add this one as well, compare. Okay, so let's compare these 2 devices. So as you can see, okay, the one is a little bit more than the other one. So this one already, if we look at, functionality, that's pretty standard, that they've got audio, Bluetooth, built-in Wi-Fi. Obviously, they've got a color. So you can already see here, Ethernet port, no. So that means you only have to rely on Wi-Fi. So you can't connect to directly to a network point, but Wi-Fi is usually quite sufficient these days. Now, one thing I do want you to look at, if you look at, for instance, the specs. So this one is Core i5. This is a Ryzen 3. So this is usually the first thing that you will look at. So a lot of the entry-level laptops would be, for instance, a Celeron. And generally, that is the lowest entry ones, the ones that are going to take quite a lot of time to process. So usually you will start off with a Core i3 and then build up from there. And it's the same with AMD. They're Ryzen 3, and then you get the Ryzen 4 and 5, and that's how they get faster. So for entry levels, usually a Core i3 is very good, where Ryzen 3 is AMD, made by AMD, and it's also pretty good. Now, one thing to note about AMD Ryzen is actually you get more speed for your buck than the Intel. So Intels are generally a little bit more expensive, but they are more readily available. Now, as we look at the RAM, for instance, this one's got 8 GB RAM, and this one is the same for that price point. And interesting enough, both of them have 256 GB SSDs. So obviously, we always want more memory. But sometimes you'll get a laptop and it says, for instance, it's got 500 GB of memory or hard drive. And then it's still the old hard drives, the HDDs, that stands for hard disk drive. So that's a mechanical drives. These ones, the SSDs, usually work like almost like a USB, and they are a lot faster. It makes your computers faster. Everything is faster with a SSD. So that's one thing to always look at. You can use the old HDDs for backups, but not for working with Windows on applications. You'll usually want to look for a SSD. Now, in terms of RAM, the recommended RAM starting is usually 8 gigabytes. You can get away with 4 gigabytes, but your applications and everything is going to be very slow. Then you're soon going to realize, wait, your phone might actually be faster than your actual laptop. So usually a good way to start is with 8 gigabytes. Then obviously you will look at, all the different specs that come standard, the features that come standard with it. But remember, most of these are pretty standard on, how can I say, laptop devices. So, you'll usually only worry about this more if you want, for instance, to connect to Ethernet port, if you want to have a really stable, fast connectivity. But those usually comes more in the more upmarket devices. Then, as Nafam mentioned, there is also an activity. So this activity, we will post a link in the chat. So connectivity, this one really sets you out to go look for different devices, research the differences. Now that you know about the hardware aspects to look at the device aspects, compare the devices, and then, also go and work with your own devices that you have. Go find out what is the RAM, what is the speed, what is the processor. And I'll give you a quick demo on Windows how to find it out, but you can find it out on all your device settings. So you can see, for instance, the students that I have previously commented on here, they actually went out and said all the device specs that they have. And this is a good way to know when you've got your device specs, you know what you can load on it and what is the possibilities with that device. So just as a quick demo, if you go to File Explorer, if you're on Windows, you can actually go to this PC. So this is the one usually in navigation in the left. You click on this PC. And from there, it's very easy to right click on it and then select properties. So once the properties open, you can see, for instance, this computer has got 8 gigabytes and it's got an Intel Core i5 processor. So that means it's quite good for, your everyday tasks and things like that. But yeah, sometimes you'll even want to go further, into your device settings and actually go find out perhaps what is the graphics card. I saw there's a few that's interested in games, and usually then you will look at what type of graphics card is also included, what is the speed of the graphics card. And one thing to note with newer devices that you might see as well is they've got now neural chips. So that means if you wanted to run software that's got AI capabilities, they're actually bringing out new devices now with neural chips built into them. But understanding hardware is the first step, and this is, always the funnest way. That's the thing that you can touch directly. But one of the things that makes these devices usable is obviously the software that runs on them, and this really unlocks the power of digital devices. So, it's best to know what type of applications you can run on different devices and which ones are they more suitable for. So, for instance, the operating system, remember everything has an operating system. So you could perhaps put in the chat here as well, which operating system do you prefer for your mobile phone and for your laptop, for instance? So the most common will be Android for mobile phones. I see there's the Samsung fans are quite a lot in here. They've actually got a own custom version of Android. And then when it comes to PCs, we usually use Windows as the operating system. It's something that we grew up with and it's easily accessible. More hardcore coders, for instance, might be interested in Linux, although you prefer perhaps Mac OS. That's with the Apple. But just know there is quite a few operating systems out there and they all have different features. So you can, for instance, just see with this comparison, when it comes to somebody telling you they've got a Mac, then usually they have a Mac OS environment, and you can generally run most of the apps that you have on Windows. They make it available on the Mac, but a lot of them are also just, for instance, operating system specific. So, for other words, it will only run on a Mac or it will only run on Windows. Then we've got, for instance, the Linux. That's the open source versions. The most popular one is Ubuntu. And this is really more when you for programmers or ICT people, because you get all your applications for free, but it's a little bit more technical setting up. They have made it a lot easier over the years, and entry-level people are starting to use it. Once you get familiar to that environment, you know, everything is free. You don't have to worry about licenses. It's also very secure, but it does have a little bit of a more of a learning curve. Now, the same with smartphones. For instance, you've got the Android and the iOS. So yes, you're not forgetting iOS. I see you in the chat. And so yes, both of these are very stable platforms. These are the ones that we know the most. We know also now, for instance, Harmony OS came out from Huawei. And just note, if you do get a phone like Huawei that's got its own operating system, usually with the trade embargoes between America and China, then they don't support, for instance, things like Word from Microsoft. And that's is quite a big thing, especially if you're studying at UNISA, because you're getting Microsoft Word and everything for free, and now you can't even install it on your mobile phone because it's running an operating system, Harmony OS, that they don't support. So always look, you know, preferably for a device, Android or iOS is very good. If you have a laptop, if you can afford a Mac, that's very good. You go with your Mac OS, they run very fast, they're very efficient. But for generally, we all use Windows on that hand. Now, so that's basically everything has an operating system. And then we have all these various apps that we install. So we already saw earlier, you talked about the productivity apps, such as, you know, the Microsoft Word, Excel, PowerPoint. You get also creative apps like Photoshop. You even get apps on your phone that makes you addicted, like TikTok and all those social media apps. So there's apps for basically everything. So it's good to know the app environment that, you know, in your mobile phone, and also the apps that you have available. As we mentioned, if you've got Harmony OS, you won't necessarily have access to official apps such as for the ones provided by Microsoft. And then obviously on your device, this is also where a lot of people have preference. The war is currently on between, I would say, Google Chrome and Microsoft Edge. So usually you'll notice I, for instance, use Microsoft Edge these days. I used to be a big Chrome fan, but Microsoft Edge actually just uses a lot less resources than Google Chrome. But it is still a very capable, how can I say, web browser. And this really depends on your preference. If you prefer Opera, I don't know if there's any Opera fans in the in tonight. You know, internet browsers really depends on what you prefer and what is the most easiest to use for you. Now, tomorrow you're going to go quite a lot into internet safety and also work a bit with the browsers as well to see its additional settings, especially for security. That's very important. Phishing attacks is currently very much on the rise, and identity theft. I saw today my sister was victim of identity theft through WhatsApp, where somebody is contacting all business or work colleagues with a new number, and they stole a WhatsApp image and a name and everything, set it up that way, and now they're trying to interact with work colleagues. So yes, identity theft, security that you will be learning tomorrow, it's becoming very serious, and especially now in the world of AI, where it can actually be automated. So you need to know how to secure your devices. Now, we had a look at productivity apps. So there are quite a few of them. But what I want you to walk away with, especially with productivity apps, is the cloud-based versions of them as well. So we grew up with on your device, on your phone or on your laptop. You might have Word installed on all your devices. But really the power when it comes to cloud-based platforms, this is where you can connect even your laptop or phone version to it, but it just gives you that interconnectivity where you can actually work collaboratively on documents. So there's quite a few, document productivity apps that you will use, for instance, for data analysis, Excel, creating presentations, PowerPoints, and then even, for instance, Microsoft Word. You will obviously use the most in terms of creating your assignments and finally your research one days. But just note there's a lot of applications to explore. For instance, Adobe Photoshop, Adobe Illustrator, there's free versions of them as well, and open source video editing software like Adobe Premiere Pro. So if you've got that creative side, that's the ones that you will explore. If you go more technical, mechanical, architectural, civil, the ones that you usually will be looking at is things like, for instance, AutoCAD, things that draw technical drawings. So there's a lot to explore within these applications. Now, one thing that's very important is when it comes to your, your operating system, really take the time and go learn it. Take some tutorials. If you go through our presentations that we will link to as well, we've got a little bit more information about each section where you can actually explore a bit more, where it takes you really as a guide through, changing the settings and also having a look at different things that you can change within the operating system. So once you are comfortable, when you've done your activity on, the technical devices, this is then really when you come to do this activity as well, navigating, customizing your operating system. And we've got a few steps that you can follow. So it's very step-by-step based. Now, remember, all these links we will share with you afterwards with the presentations. So don't feel overwhelmed with the activities. You can really go and do them at your own time and pace. And I see here, for instance, ChatGPT is the way to go these days. So yes, AI is actually taking over a lot of our productivity apps and applications. So that is something that is really evolving in this world. I actually saw ChatGPT, a new version where it actually controls your computer. So you just tell it what you want, and it does everything for you. So maybe the days of spending hours and hours learning a program might be very close to the end. But the one I really want to leave you with is cloud computing. So this is where all the latest developments happens, and how you can get access to apps the quickest. Now, the one that I want to really delve into is your accounts that you have with MyLife. So very importantly, let me just quickly swap over to my student one. So if you go, for instance, to office.com. So I hope none of you bought Office subscriptions or licenses, because if you log in to office.com with your MyLife email, you'll notice actually you get access to all of these various apps. And you can even install the apps as well on your device. So I'm going to post this link for office.com. Let me just open it up here quickly. And I want to make just sure before we leave this session, go log in with your MyLife email. Make sure you've got access to all of these applications. These are the ones that they're going to explore a little bit more tomorrow, how you can use these applications. So it's very important that you can actually access these types of applications. And a very new one that you will notice as well is Microsoft 365 Copilot. So the Copilot is basically Microsoft's version of the AI. And you can actually start conversations with documents and all kinds of things where it can automate you. But this is a very new developing technology. That's why within this course, we still focus a little bit more just on the OneDrives, the Word that you can use to store your information, as Nachma explained, cloud computing, where you can upload your files. It can sync to your device. So you can actually have the app on your device. It syncs up. So you know it's always up to date and you've always got backups. That's the biggest thing with cloud computing, is collaboration and backups. So that how can I say, in the old days we used to use USBs, and students used to come to the labs with the USBs, and what happens to them at the most critical point? Those USBs fail and they lose all of their data. So that's why even if you use a laptop, a mobile device, make sure that you've got, for instance, OneDrive installed so you know all your files are always safe. So I know we've gone a bit over time, so I'm just gonna let Nafma continue with the section, but I just want to show you quickly on the site before I leave you. Remember the site, I'll share the link as well. Let's wait for this bit tab there. So you can go to adovh.unisa.ac.za. So remember, we're working on this one, the HERTEC, on this one over here. Now on this page, if you scroll a bit down, you'll notice there's two sessions. So that's the one that we will cover tomorrow. So today is session 1. So if you click on session 1, there is already a recording, a previous one. You can download the presentations from here. And there's also direct links to the activities. So I'll share this link directly in the chat. Please, for tomorrow, go through the presentations and go through the activities. You don't need to feel rushed to do all of them. Just do them at your own pace. But as long as you do, for instance, 1 or 2, you know that tomorrow you can follow along as we build up on what we've learned today. And with that, I'll hand it back over to Nafma for just closing and just to suck you up for tomorrow's session. Thank you, Nafma.
Thank you so much, Richard. And I do agree. Like Richard said, don't be stressed if you weren't able to access everything right now. There's always things like we've got connectivity issues. Take your time, go through it. Richard shared the link, David as well. They've shared the links. You can literally rewatch it again on YouTube. Go at your own pace and feel confident going at your own pace. Don't feel pressurized by anyone, including yourself. Just take it slow and really go through it. So please join us tomorrow. Tomorrow we will be continuing on exploring the applications that Richard introduced really well to us. And really, we want to see how we can use our software essentially to make our lives easier rather than make us really stuck. We're going to also be looking at our cloud computing with OneDrive, like Richard referenced. We're going to be looking at what our web browsers do, our online safety and privacy, how to maintain a professional online presence, our web browsing essentials, and identifying and accessing those digital resources we urgently need. So please join us tomorrow at the same time, and we really look forward to it. And we thank you so much for the engagement in the chat. That really, really makes us also feel like we are part of a big community because we are part of it as well. So thank you to my colleagues Lindiwe, to my colleague Richard, to my colleague David that's been working away in the chat as well, and also to Dr. Chetty. And I really wish everyone a fantastic evening. See you tomorrow. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye,
Bye.
everyone. Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.